overdosed and died. King Meliodas mourned for 7 years, then married the daughter of King Howell of Brittany, and had another son. The new queen was cruel-hearted, and wishing her own son to inherit the lands of lions, she resolved to poison young Tristram. So she put poison in a silver cup in Tristram's room, hoping that he would drink it. But sad for her, her own son ran into Tristram's room from play, saw the drink, and downed it in one draught. He died within the hour. The queen was now heartbroken and filled with hatred for the innocent Tristram. Because she could not bear to see him, she persuaded her husband to send the boy about the realm to learn the ways of noble knights. Thus, with his squire Gawain, the young Tristram wandered across France and Britain, learning foreign tongues, new skills with sword and lance, and the arts of music and poetry. By the time he was 18, he was strong and skilled, and a most accomplished harpist. One time, while he was staying at the castle of his uncle, King Mark of Cornwall, a messenger arrived from Ireland, from the great King Aquasens. For many years Cornwall had had to pay tribute to the Irish king, but these 7 years past, King Mark had fallen into debt. The tax-collecting envoy was none other than Sir Maurice, one of his strongest knights of the Round Table, and a brother to the Queen of Ireland. "Pay your debts," Sir Maurice told the king, "or I shall challenge you or one of your knights to avenge Ireland's honor." But there was no knight in King Mark's court who dared to joust with the fierce Sir Maurice. Then Tristram spoke to the king, requesting that he be made a knight, so that he might accept the challenge. Eager to avoid the joust himself, King Mark readily made Tristram a knight, and soon the battle was arranged on an island off the coast of Cornwall, by which Sir Maurice's ships were anchored. When King Mark and his barons saw how Sir Tristram departed with such valor to fight for Cornwall, there was not a noble man or woman who did not weep at his fate. Conscience struck that so young and good a knight should sacrifice himself on their behalf. When Sir Tristram had been ferried to the island by his squire Gawain, with horse and in full armor, he saw Sir Maurice galloping towards him in the distance. Holding up his lance and shield, Tristram set off at a pace to meet the charge. The two knights clashed so fiercely that both were flung to the stony ground, the young man receiving a piercing blow from Maurice's lance, which left a gaping wound in its left side. Both men rose together, swords at the ready, and struck at each other wildly and ferociously. Thus they fought for more than half a day, until both were sorely wounded and caked in blood. At last Sir Maurice began to tire, and was unable to fend off a mighty blow that cut through his helmet and bit into his skull, leaving a piece of sword edge lodged there. Sir Maurice fell dazed to his knees, cast down his sword and shield in surrender, and then staggered groaning to his ships. His men sailed forth to Ireland, and although many surgeons tried to heal his wound, he shortly died. His sister, the Queen of Ireland, kept the piece of sword taken from her brother's skull, swearing one day to have revenge upon its owner. Meanwhile, Sir Tristram, himself sorely wounded, was carried to a boat and taken back to the castle at Tintagel, where he lay close to death for a month or more. His uncle and the barons did all they could to save him, summoning wise women and herbalists from all around to try their cure. see nothing for it but to send Tristram to Ireland. So, as soon as he could walk, he and the faithful governor boarded a ship bound for the Irish coast. After several adventures, they came finally to the castle of the King and Queen of Ireland. Tristram was made welcome as the laws of hospitality demanded. In return, he played his harp for the royal household. So entranced was the king by the lilting music of the harp that he begged the pale young minstrel to remain a while at the castle. "But tell us who you are," said the king, "and why are you so wan and pale?" "I hail from the land of lions across the sea in France, and my name is Tristram," said the lad, turning round his name. "I was wounded in a battle, and I am not yet fully recovered." "Perchance we can help you," the king said. "My daughter Isolda is skilled in the art of healing and the lore of herbs. If she cannot heal you, then no one can." The king's daughter duly cleaned the wound, found the poison, and brought herbs that were an antidote to the toxin. Within weeks, Tristram was completely restored to health. While he was being nursed by the fair Isolda, Sir Tristram began to fall in love with her, and she with him. They spent many happy hours together, she recounting the many folk tales of Ireland, and he treating her to play the harp and sing the sad romances of his native France. Now there was at the Irish court a powerful knight, Palomides, a Saracen. He too loved Isolda, the fair, and dearly wished to wed her. He was even ready to renounce his Muslim faith and become a Christian for her love. Sir Palomides had brought with him from Jerusalem many precious gifts, which he promised the Irish king if only he would give his agreement to the betrothal. At last the king pledged that if Sir Palomides could emerge victor from a jousting tournament, he might wed his daughter. Thus a great tournament was announced, and the news of it broadcast far and wide to England and Cornwall, Wales and Scotland, France and Brittany. Soon the most famous knights in all of Christendom began arriving on the Irish shores. They included many of King Arthur's bravest knights. Poor Isolda was in despair, for she did not love the mighty Saracen. She was filled with horror at the thought of being his bride. When she appealed to her beloved Tristram, he told her, "I am only a newly made knight, and am still weak from the wounds of my first battle. But rest assured, I shall do my best to serve you, or die in the attempt. Prepare a horse and armor for me. But tell me one of my intention to joust, lest they try to stop me." Isolda was filled with hope and eagerly carried out Tristram's instructions. As the great day dawned, Sir Palomides rode forth to the tournament, resplendent in his shining armor, and carrying his splendid black shield. As the jousts began, he overthrew first one, then a second, then a third, then a dozen bold knights who took up his challenge. Even such hardy knights as Sir Gawain and Sir Gaheris, Sir Agavain, and Sir Kay were defeated, so that the people at the tournament felt that no one could stand against the Saracen. On that second day it seemed once again as if the Knight of the Black Shield, as the crowd called him, would carry all before him. Isolda, however, had obtained a white horse and silver armor for Sir Tristram. build on the armor and trappings herself, and let Tristram out of the castle by a private gate, so that no one should stop him. Suddenly, therefore, the crowd was surprised to see, riding on to the tournament field, a stranger on a white horse, come to challenge Sir Palamedes. The two knights, one in black and one in silver, charged towards each other at full tilt, and when the dust from the thudding hoofs had cleared and the horses had passed, the crowd was amazed to see Sir Palamedes lying bruised and groaning on the ground. The fair Isolda was so happy that tears of joy coursed down her lovely cheeks. Sir Tristram made his fallen rival promise that he would not bother the Lady Isolda no more, and that he would bear no weapons or armor for a year. In his shame, the once proud Saracen cut off his armor there and then and left it lying on the battlefield. Only then did Sir Tristram remove his helmet, so revealing his identity to the king and all the knights about. Now he was even more honored than before. Straight after that joust, Tristram went to clean the dust of battle from himself and eased his aching body, ready to take him up. While he was lying in the bath, the queen and her daughter waited in the outer chamber, ready to take him to the king. The queen noticed his sword lying on the bed. On a sudden whim, she drew it from its scabbard to admire the noble blade. Straightway she saw that a piece of steel was missing, some 18 inches from the tip. Her suspicions rapidly aroused, she hastened to her own room and took from her cupboard the piece of sword cut from Maras's head. When she watched the piece of steel, she looked at Sir Tristram's sword, and she saw it fit perfectly. In a rage, the queen gripped the sword and rushed back, intending to run through Tristram in his bath. She was restrained by Tristram's squire, Governor. Foiled of her revenge, she ran directly to King Axusance to tell him of her discovery. "My lord, you have a traitor in your midst," she cried. "Sir Tramtrist is none other than that treacherous knight who killed my dear brother, Sir Maris." The king's heart was heavy, for he much loved the brave knight. Summoning Tristram to him, he told him of the accusation. Tristram at once confessed. "What I did was for my country, since no other knight would accept Maras's challenge. Having received the poison wound, I had come here to be healed, and I did not dare reveal my true identity. I therefore turned my name from Tristram to Tramtrist. Pray forgive my forced deceit." "I cannot blame you," said the king. "You acted as a true knight should. But now you must leave my court, for I fear the queen will succeed in her revenge, should you remain." "Sire," said Tristram, "I thank you for your goodness. I vow that everywhere I go, I shall be your daughter's devoted servant, her true knight in right and wrong. I ask only that you give me leave to say a parting word to my dear Isolda." The king having given his assent, Tristram went straight to his beloved to say farewell. He told her everything without embroider, who he was and what he'd done. "Oh, gentle knight," Isolda sobbed, "my heart breaks at this parting. I pledge to you that I shall wed no one unless it be with your consent." With that they exchanged rings, swearing eternal love, and Tristram departed, sailing back to his uncle, King Mark of Cornwall. There he lived, sorrowing for his true love, and confiding in his uncle about the beauty and goodness of the fair Isolda. Now King Mark, though at first delighted at the knight's return, gradually came to envy the young man for his skill at jousting, hunting, and playing the harp. Jealousy began to spoil his life, for he himself had been the undisputed champion of the sword before Tristram's return. So he plotted to be rid of him, and at the same time gain himself a wife. He thought that if he sent Tristram back to Ireland, he would soon be killed by the vengeful queen. "My dear nephew," he said one day, "since I have no queen, it would be fitting to invite the Lady Isolda to reign over these Cornish lands, as you say she is passing fair and gracious. So I entrust you with the noble mission of sailing Ireland to bring her back to me." Sir Tristram was a loyal knight, and though dismayed at the thought of giving up his loved one, it pleased him to know Isolda would be his queen, and that he could serve her truly. So he set sail once more, and came to Ireland to ask for the fair Isolda's hand in marriage to King Mark of Cornwall. "Would that it had been for yourself, you ask," said King Acquiescence, "for my daughter loves you dearly, and I would be honored to have you as my son." Sir Tristram was greatly moved, but answered gently, "No greater honor could befall me than to wed the Lady Isolda, for I love her most deeply. But I have given my word as a knight to my uncle, and cannot break it." When Isolda was told of Sir Tristram's mission, she too grieved deeply, but the hate-filled queen was pleased. She felt that Tristram's pain at seeing Isolda wed another would satisfy her lust for revenge more deeply than his death. To make him suffer even more, she had a love potion prepared, so that when Isolda and King Mark drank it together, they would fall deeply in love. And all thought of Tristram would fly forever from her daughter's mind. This potion was entrusted to Isolda's maid, the Dame Gawain. Tristram and Isolda set sail with a party of servants to make for the Cornish coast. When the ship was at sea, Isolda complained to Tristram that the sea air made her thirsty. "I have discovered a flask hidden in Dame Gawain's cloak," she confided. "It looks like a rare, sweet wine. Let us slake our thirst from it." So they drank to one another, enjoyed the cool, sweet liquid, and were fair content. And, of course, the potion did its work. Their love became a bond that bound them all their lives. Never has there been a greater love than that between Tristram and Isolda. And because of it, Tristram suffered the cruelest torture, since he had to keep his word to the Cornish king, even though his heart was near to breaking. In due course they arrived in Cornwall, and Isolda was soon married to King Mark. It was not long, however, before the king divined that Isolda's heart would never belong to him. So his hatred grew even fiercer for the man who had served him loyally at all times and in all things. There is little more to tell, the minstrel at King Arthur's court related. Tristram of Lyons lived true to his name, born in sorrow. His fame spread far and wide, and he kept his secret love imprisoned within his heart. Then one spring day, as the fair Isolda, now queen of all Cornwall, was wandering alone by the banks of a clear stream, she chanced upon the object of her love. He was sitting, musing, sadly in his lonely grief. That fateful encounter was followed by another, then many more, and both Tristram and Isolda broke their vows of honor and obedience. But do not judge them too harshly, for the love charm was upon them. Before long, whispers began to reach King Mark of their secret meetings and their deceit, and he had Sir Tristram banished from Cornwall, so that he could never again set eyes upon Isolda. Thus he wanders now through all the land of Logre, singing mournful songs to his harp, and playing the part of a wandering minstrel. The singer was silent, and a great stillness fell upon the assembled guests at Camelot. Many a knight and lady had concealed their eyes, their faces in their hands, as telltale tears ran between their fingers. Then spoke King Arthur in trembling voice, "Minstrel, how is it that you know so much about Sir Tristram?" The handsome young man gave a sad smile as he stood up from his stool and stepped forward towards the king. He was tall and strong and proud, and spoke softly, so that all present had to strain to catch his words. "You see, King Arthur," the minstrel said, "I know the tale as well as a man knows his fate, for I am the man born in sorrow, Sir Tristram." A gasp of surprise, mingled with pity, came from all the guests. But Arthur rose and took Tristram's hands in his. "Welcome to Camelot, Sir Tristram," he said. "A place of honor awaits you at our table. Merlin, our wise counselor, told us of your coming, and bade us keep a seat for you. See, even now your name appears in letters of gold upon your chair." And so it was. Sir Tristram joined the noble fellowship of knights, and henceforth turned his sword to meeting the high ideals of the Round Table, taking his place each Whitstone with all the other knights. Despite his many adventures and the good companionship of his fellow knights, however, Tristram's heart mourned still for his beloved Isolda. Thinking to help him overcome his grief, King Arthur sent for a most lovely and clever maiden, also named Isolda, a daughter of the Duke of Arundel. This Isolda of the fair hands, as she was known, loved Sir Tristram dearly, and he consented to the marriage. To all appearances, he was a true and faithful husband to her, and had put all thought of the Queen of Cornwall from his mind, or so it seemed. For as the years went by, Sir Tristram became more and more reckless in battle, evidently caring little whether he lived or died. Then one day he received a wound that would not be cured by leeches or the usual remedies. When he knew that he was dying, he begged his faithful governor to set sail for Tintagel Castle and inform Isolda of his sickness. If she agreed to come, Governor was to hoist a white sail on his ship when he returned, so that Tristram would be forewarned. But if she declined, he was to raise a black sail. The fair Isolda needed no persuasion. She left at once, and within a week the ship bearing her and Governor was returning with its gleaming white sail billowing in the wind. By now, however, Tristram lay upon his bed, too weak to rise. So he asked his wife, "Pray go down to the cliff and see if Governor's ship is coming. If the Queen of Cornwall is on board, the sail will be white. If she is not, will be black. Thus shall I know. Now Sir Tristram's wife knew all there was to know of her husband's undying love for the fair Isolda, and in her unhappy jealousy she told him a lie on her return. I have seen Gouvernail's ship a long way off, she said. It sails all black, of that there is no doubt. Tristram sighed deeply, as if a knife had pierced his heart, and he turned his head to the wall, hiding his tear-stained face. I love you, my fair Isolda, he murmured, but I will never see you again. Farewell, my beloved. With that, he succumbed to pain, and ceased to fight more for his life. Within the hour, the faithful Sir Tristram of Lyons was dead. When the lovely Queen of Cornwall, fair Isolda, came into the room some moments later, she fell upon her knees, her tears falling upon his still warm face. So deep was her grief that she breathed her last upon her loved one's breast, dying of a broken heart. They were buried together in a single grave, and over the grave were planted 2 rose bushes, one red, one white, so that as they grew, they inclined towards each other until the blossoms kissed and the branches intertwined. As time went by, they grew into a single bush, bearing roses that were pink. Never in all eternity have there been such faithful lovers as Sir Tristram and the fair Isolda. That was a nice long one. I'm not sure how well this method is taped. I can tell you one thing. The way that I have to whisper makes me breathless. I'm going to see how well this works. I'm going to check it real quick. And depending on how well it taped, I'll either continue in this mode or I'll do one more at a different taping it in a different way. So if the second tape sounds different when you clip over to wherever I have to add it in, I apologize. But anyway, let me check on that real quick. Okay, thanks. Well, that sounded different. I think I sounded a lot like Captain Kirk. A lot of halting language, kind of like I just did there, and exaggerated. I think that if I can make myself read at a different pace, I can talk at this level, and it'll tape okay. So, that's what I'm gonna strive to do. I hope it works. I really do. I apologize if this doesn't come out very well. But let me go ahead and do the next one. How many pages is this? It's a good long one too. Good for y'all. Torture for me. I'm just kidding. I really am saying that facetiously. I enjoy doing these videos, and besides, I haven't done them in a while, so I guess I deserve a little bit of punishment, right? Okay. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It was Christmastide in King Arthur's court at Camelot. Many good knights were there, seated at the round table, as rightful brothers, enjoying the feasting, carol singing, and carefree mirth. Life was sweet, and the days passed in peerless pleasure for the most noble knights known in Christendom, and the fairest ladies that ever lived on earth. Next to them were Bishop Baldwin and Vay, son of Uriens, and many other stalwart knights with their ladies. Before each person were set 12 dishes, bright wine, and good beer, and the celebrations continued through the days and nights. On New Year's Eve, when the merriment was at its height, the hall doors suddenly burst open, and an unknown rider came charging in. He was a giant of a man, surely the tallest man alive, with the strong, long limbs and great proud head. Yet, despite his bulk, he was well proportioned and fiercely handsome. Great wonder spread throughout the hall at the strange sight, for the stranger from head to toe was completely green, as children on these benches, their might is puny alongside of mine. No, I called at your court to play a game, since 'tis a Yuletide, when many young bloods seek sport. Is there anyone in this house with red blood and a good gray brain who would strike one blow for another? I would give him my sharp axe, and, if he be a man enough to hold it, he may strike the first blow as hard as he desires. I shall not resist. However, in a 12-month and a day, he shall receive the same from me. Well, who dares accept my challenge? The stranger in green twisted around in his saddle, rolled his great eyes, arched his bristling brows, stroked his bushy beard, waiting for someone to rise. When no one moved, he spoke again. Is this truly Arthur's court, whose fame is spoken of in every realm? See how the lords of the Round Table cower and quake at the words of one man. And he laughed so loudly that King Arthur's face grew red with shame, and he stepped towards the stranger, saying, Sir, now we see you are in earnest. If no one else will take up your challenge, give me your axe, and I shall grant you the boon. Arthur advanced and took the weapon from him, gripped the shaft, and waited for the rider to dismount. The green fellow stepped down and stood before Arthur, a full head taller than anyone in court. With a stern look, he bent his head and calmly prepared to take the blow. Just at that moment, Gawain came forward, declaring, Please grant me grace, sire, to take up this challenge in your place. It is not fit for you to take it upon yourself, when the offer was made directly to your knights. The loss of my life would be less mourned. To the approval of the court, Sir Gawain took the axe from Arthur and faced the man in green. Although Gawain's hands trembled, he looked the green man boldly in the eye. Now, sir, the stranger said, tell me your name, and give me your word that you courage does not turn cold when you fulfill your pact. And he had the axe hung upon the wall, so that men might stare at it in awe and tell truly the amazing tale. The year went by swiftly. The cold cheer of Lent arrived. Then the season of summer, with its soft winds, followed by Michaelmas, when the moon hangs wintry pale in the night sky, until at last, on All Saints' Day, King Arthur held a feast to honor Sir Gawain before he set off on his quest. After the supper, Gawain took leave of the king and his comrades, of Yvain and Eric, Sir Dodinel the Savage, the Duke of Clarence, Lionel and Lucan the Good, Sir Bors and Bedivere. Each gave him counsel, though in their hearts they feared he would not return. You all know the terms of my task, said Gawain. I shall endure the stroke of that grim man in green, and entrust myself to God. Farewell. He rode through the kingdom of Logray, King Arthur's realm, with no one for company, save his good mount Gringolet, and no one to speak his mind to save Almighty God. On and opposite the islands of Anglesey, both Holyhead, there he turned east across the Dee, and made his way through the forest of Wirral. Earnestly he inquired of each person he met, had he heard of a knight all in green, or of his green chapel thereabouts. But all said the same, and solemnly swore that they had never heard of such a strange knight or chapel. Thus Gawain across the country rode until Christmas Eve, when he found himself in a thick forest of huge oaks, their branches intertwined with hazel and hawthorn, so that he found it hard to make his way. Excuse me for 1 second. Till the morn of New Year's Day, for the Green Chapel is but 2 miles from here. I shall gladly show you the way. Gawain was relieved that his search had at last met with success, and he gladly agreed to stay in the castle. The host took his arm and seated him once more by the fireside. For 3 days, he said, you shall stay here at your ease, and lie late in bed, since you are lacking in rest, and need all strength for your coming mission. While you are resting, I shall go hunting in the forest, and my wife will entertain you. Bowing low, Sir Gawain gratefully gave his assent. Now, Sir Gawain, said the host, let us strike a bargain. Whatever I gain in the forest, I will give to you on my return each evening, and you will give to me all that you have earned that day in my castle. That sounds a fair bargain to me, laughed Gawain, for I am sure I stand to gain most by it. At dawn next day, master and servants rode off across the frosty ground, following the keen-scented hounds. And while the good lord led the hunt for deer in a linden wood, Gawain lay in bed, lingering long after the pale sun had risen. As he lay beneath his worn coverlet in the curtained four-poster bed, he suddenly caught the sound of the chamber door opening softly. Pulling back one corner of the curtain, he was surprised to see the lord's lovely wife enter and come towards his bed. So abashed was Gawain that he laid his head low again, pretending to be asleep. Meanwhile, she stole towards him, pulled aside the curtain, and sat down softly on the bed, waiting for him to awake. For a long while he feigned sleep, wondering what to do. It ill became an honorable knight to betray his host's firm trust. At last he stirred and stretched as if startled from sleep, and lifted his eyelids wide, as if in wonder at the lady's presence. She spoke sweetly, gazing fondly at him, her laughing lips inviting. Good morning, Sir Gawain. You are a heavy sleeper to let a maiden slip in unnoticed. Since I have caught you unawares, you must grant me a favor. Good morning, good lady, said Gawain lightly. Ask what you will of me. I surrender myself to your good graces, This time he thought it best to greet her right away, and she repaid him with soft words, settling closely at his side. "Sir, if you really are Gawain," she sighed, "it seems great wonder that you have learned nothing from yesterday's lesson, though I painted it as plain as my poor wits allowed." "What lesson, dear lady?" he this,